As always, it is my pleasure that you join me for today's podcast of Second Chance Coaching. My name is Dr. Richard Lewis. If you'd be so kind as to leave me a rating and your feedback, I would very much appreciate it, and it will help others like you to optimally discover this podcast wherever you listen to this and your other favorite podcast. As you know, at Second Chance Coaching, we focus on seeing everyday life through the eyes of the returning citizen and highlighting the resiliency of the human spirit. I would love to work with you one-on-one, whether you're a returning citizen or coaching client seeking your second chance, or you're a representative of a business, college, or university seeking to integrate and support returning citizens in your respective organizational and learning environments. Please feel free to contact me via email at richard@secondchancecoaching.com or via Instagram at @the_Richard_Lewis. Welcome again to another edition of Second Chance Coaching. As always, it is my pleasure to join you on another week of your reentry journey from whichever corner of the world you're listening from. We always remain humbled and excited that you decided to spend a part of your week with us. Last week, many of us in Florida experienced the effects of Hurricane Milton. Thank goodness, in Southeast Florida, where I'm located, we didn't experience any ill effects from any tropical storm bands or excessive rain. Many of my friends in Tampa and Orlando experienced power outages for at least 24 hours and more. I think by the time we're broadcasting, many of them should have their power. I think that a lot of them have their power restored. But since we did not have any ill effects from the storm, classes resumed for us at the college last Friday. But I have to be honest with you, the interruption in my schedule threw my game off a little bit. But, once I started teaching, it was like riding a bike. I just got back into it. I'm sure the same was for the students. I could see it was a little bit of a grind at first for them, but I give them credit. They showed up, very few absences, and they were ready to go to work. But for them, once the wheels started moving, they were in the groove for sure. But for most of my colleagues, most of the teaching colleagues, they didn't really feel the effects of going back to work on Friday, as most of them don't teach on Friday. But at the end of the day, I ended up winning at the beginning of the week since I don't teach on Mondays. This coming week, I'll be attending another conference in Orlando, and it'll be nice to do something different and change up my routine, as well as enjoying, going to network with other faculty members and other United Faculty of Florida union members from all over the state. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who came back from a conference just this last week, and I think it was some sort of an economic development conference, as he described it, but apparently there were a lot of discussions either through the seminars or amongst conference attendees that concentrated on reentry. Now, this friend of mine, he's not a returning citizen, but he was fascinated, or more so, I think he was more so frustrated as to what he heard were the collateral consequences of a criminal conviction. And he said to me in a very honest and very sincere way that he never thought about what my reentry must have been like, especially when I was first coming home. I shared with him, like I shared with many of you on this podcast, when I first came home, I consider myself very fortunate and lucky that I had the protection and love of my mother. She had a home that I was able to be comfortable in, and with her, along with my sister, my niece, and of course my children, they were a very present means of emotional and moral support. Now, the barriers to reentry that a lot of us face on our reentry journey, I started to directly feel when I was looking for an apartment in South Florida in 2010. And I just kept getting rejected over and over again, no matter how long ago my conviction was. When I finally got an apartment, I was at the place where I wasn't going to get one, and I was just ready to give up. And I remember just telling the complex to not take my application money or anything like that, if they were just going to end up rejecting me anyway, since I was being truthful about my conviction history. But either by luck, as I said in the past, or just the person felt bad for me, I guess I'll never know the reason, I was approved for that apartment, and I spent a great 2 years in that apartment. I shared with my friend that he should participate in an exercise called the Reentry Simulator. And why I suggested that he participate in this exercise, he's somebody that certainly has influence in his field, could make a difference in what it is that he does. And I think that his frustration or his empathy or sympathy in feeling what returning citizens go through, I said, well, if you kind of feel it a little bit in a simulated environment, maybe then you will know where to help and not just feel bad. Because at the end of the day, nobody just doesn't want just sympathy or empathy. They want, we want the ability for opportunities to be created. Now, and I said he could find that in this reentry simulator. The Reentry Simulator is a program that's been up and running in the state of Virginia for quite some time. And the Florida Department of Corrections is starting to take it on, and they'll conduct a reentry simulation session on Friday, November 15th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in West Palm Beach. Now, the reentry simulation is designed to simulate the struggles faced by returning citizens when they're transitioning back from incarceration back into mainstream society. Now, the goal of the simulation is really for the participants to gain a better understanding or to gain a fresh understanding of the significant obstacles faced by returning citizens when they're navigating through the maze of multiple systems to hopefully optimize the beginning of one's reentry journey. Now, to work at its best, it's almost like a grand, almost like a speed dating type of thing, but in a different sort of way. For the simulation to really work correctly, you need a minimum of 80 people, and I'll tell you why. The first 20 people, they work at various tables that symbolize what different needs there are for the returning citizen. And the remaining 60 people are the individuals who assume the identity of returning citizens, and they receive a packet of materials in order to navigate through this maze of the simulator. And one of those materials includes what's called a quote unquote a life card. The life card is designed to identify for that simulated returning citizen to explain, for the purposes of the simulation, their criminal background, their current living situation, their current employment situation, and the specific weekly tasks that they have to accomplish to avoid the risk of being sent back to prison due to non-compliance of their supervised parole. So it is like a speed dating type of Monopoly type game that you have to go through. And having 60 people be the returning citizens or 60 people or more is pretty ideal, as an exercise is designed to show the bottleneck and the chaos that can be created when a large population is pursuing a finite number of resources. The 20 people who participate in this simulation who are not returning citizens would be the exercise simulator, would be the things, the services, and the functions that represent so many different things that the returning citizen is going to stop at and go through. Whether a table could represent a career center or a GED program, there could be a chance booth, and the chance booth could be something that could randomly happen in life by chance. Another table could represent church. Another table could represent court. Another table could represent a discount medical center, a possible employer, an identification station, a plasma center. We'll explain that in a second. The Office of Probation, a quick loan and pawn shop, rent and transportation, social services, a super center and a bank, a treatment and counseling center, and police officers, neighborhood police officer or police officers. So a lot of different things that this simulation will take you through. And over the course of about an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, the participants experience the first month of post-release life. The simulation will start with an explanation and instructions from the facilitator to the simulated returning citizens, what they have to do, and then they have them set out to try and navigate their new lives. So each week of the reentry journey, each week of the new reentry journey for the simulated returning citizens take place in a 15-minute segment. So the week in this simulation would represent the 15 minutes they have to go through all of this stuff. Sometimes it could go up to 20 minutes, depending on how long you want the simulation to take place. And then in between these segments, would be the end of a quote unquote week. So that at that point, at in between each 15 to 20-minute segment, the simulated returning citizens would return to their simulated home, which could be a halfway house, a home, a shelter, or even jail. And they would engage in a guided conversation to discuss their experiences, successes, and their failures. Now, the life card contains the weekly tasks and responsibilities that have to be completed by the participant. And at the end of every segment, they have to have completed tasks checked off as if they completed their to-do list for the week. Many of these to-dos would include paying for transportation, getting or not getting rental assistance, reporting to probation, and possibly even getting violated and being sent back to jail for some of the segments. Just like, and going through the simulator really tries to take you through those things, just like it would be happening to an actual returning citizen. Earlier, we indicated a plasma center as a stop. Many of you may know that a plasma center is an option not only for returning citizens, but for many people, that could be an option to sell their plasma for medical purposes. And they could sell their plasma twice a week to get money, which could be utilized to offset costs such as transportation, etc. So, in addition, depending on what's on the applicant's, on the participant's life card, the simulator could also disqualify them for food stamps, make them eligible or ineligible for rent assistance, make them eligible for vocational rehabilitation, definitely depending on what access to social services that they would have, and of course, further education. The simulation, definitely could get very exhausting because it's always unpredictable at every station. As a facilitator, you could drop what's called a wild card, and that's what you would get at the chance booth or in different other places. They could drop a wild card, which would represent unplanned events along the journey. And those events could be good events, and those events could also be bad events, or events that just throw a curveball or a delay in what you're trying to do. And sometimes they permanently leave a mark and leave a permanent impression upon the route that one takes. These wild cards are really designed to test your resolve, to test the participants' resolve, and their adaptability to the various situations that will happen right in front of them, especially in those first few weeks of the reentry journey. Now, when the simulation has finally completed after a couple of hours, or let's say 2.5 hours ideally, the entire group will come back as a master group, and and they'll have the opportunity to answer a great deal of questions that's designed to stimulate discussion, not a situation, discussing about the situations. And these questions would be things like, who was frustrated and why were they frustrated? What was the hardest part of the week? What was the hardest week? How many of them found a job? How many of them had to look for another job? Were there challenges in finding a job? What challenges were there? Who went to work that particular week? Maybe they worked in a temporary position. Were there any difficulties as it pertains to transportation? If you got thrown in jail on a violation, how did that happen? How did you get out? Did you remember to do a lot of life balance stuff, life work balance and life balance stuff as far as the reentry journey? Did you remember to eat and take care of yourself? Do you remember to pray? Do you remember to meditate? Do things that could help you out along the way. And who felt successful at the end of the journey? At the end of the simulation, who felt that they actually succeeded, or did they have successes along the way? Or who felt they failed or had too many failures along the way? And then, last, but certainly not has to be the last question, but one of the last things that they ask is, what was the most challenging aspect of the simulation? As we know, successful reentry back into mainstream society is just not easy. And at times it could be really complex and unpredictable. But it's unique to every single person's journey, because everyone has similar needs, but there are individuals who have other specialized needs. To be successful on the reentry journey is not something that happens automatically, but success is attainable if you plan it accordingly and you commit yourself to take each step one day at a time. and know that every day is a new beginning and you start over and you sit there and go forward. Even if you go 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and you only have a net gain of 1 step, you know what it's like to get to those 3 steps. And you take those 3 and you continue to aim to take 1 step at a time going forward. My hope is that my friend will go through this exercise next month and has an even deeper appreciation of the reentry journey, so he could become, as I said earlier, he could be a change agent. He could be ambassador. He could be an ambassador of the cause that many of us need to help convert many of the masses to make the reentry journey a much more smoother dynamic, a much more smoother transition, so that the reentry journey could become more of a, okay, this is just something that we do, and it's not going to have too many chutes and ladders or so many unpredictable variables, And like I said, it is an interesting dynamic. So if you have a chance to do a reentry simulator, I definitely suggest that you do it and participate in that. And so with that certainly concludes our subject matter discussion for the week. As always, I want to thank you, as always, for sharing your time with me. It's so valuable and so appreciated, and it's recognized. And thank you, because the time that we share together is such a valuable favorite time of the week for me. Thank you for continuing to spread Second Chance Coaching to your friends, family, and loved ones. If you have a chance to do a reentry simulator, please do it. You will certainly get a good taste of what it is that's going on and how some of your friends, family, or loved ones who are on their reentry journey, how they're handling things and the things that they may face, that you could have a little bit of a deeper understanding, which could help you help them even better. Once again, thank you for joining us. I'm so happy that you've joined us. Continue to spread the word of what we're doing here, and I look forward to spending more time with you again next week. Thank you again for joining us here at Second Chance Coaching. In addition to coaching services for individuals and businesses, I'm also available for speaking engagements and workshops on criminal justice reentry, human resources, as well as organizational culture and leadership. Feel free to email me at richard@secondchancecoaching.com, as well as connect with me on Instagram at @DrRichardLewis. Remember, every day you are given this opportunity for your second chance, and I know you'll make the best of it. I love you all, and I look forward to connecting with you next time here at Second Chance Coaching.